Welcome to Artscape. I'm your host, Bill Harris. We got a great show for you today. We are at Sophia Street Studios, located between the library and Amelia Street on Sophia Street. Sophia Street Studios is home of three of the nicest and most talented artists in Fredericksburg. Trista Chapman, who is the owner and potter, Karen Welpley, who's an oil painter, and Christy Zero, who is also an oil painter. Well, let's go in and check it out. We're here with Trista Chapman, owner of Sophia Street Studios. And Trista here's making me a coffee mug. Right. Trista, tell me the sort of the history of Sophia Street Studios.
Well, my husband, Phil Chapman, the late husband, Phil Chapman, started this studio in 1982. He was a potter, made functional stoneware for years, transitioned into making decorative raku, big, beautiful decorative vases and things, and I met him in 1995. That's when I became involved here at the studio.
I think it's important to note that Phil was one of the founders of the art world here in Fredericksburg.
Yes.
I mean, back in, you said 79, there wasn't many artists in town here.
No, he was brought to town right from VCU, where he graduated from art school. He started the Fredericksburg Pottery in 1977, I believe it was. And he was one of the little potters. They wanted him to wear a little uniform and sit in the window, and sort of like a Williamsburg, Jamestown kind of thing, but he refused that. Yeah, I'm sure. But he worked down there for years before he started a studio out in the country. And then after he had the studio in the country, he came here to this studio. And it looked quite different. It's been through many transitions. Yeah. And even a fire in 1995, which is when I met him. And the whole place upstairs has been renovated, and the shop out front has been changed a lot.
Now where we're at now is we have three artists here, yourself, Karen Welpley, and Christy Zerl, sharing the space as working studios, right? Right. And sort of explain how that is.
Well, it's been a wonderful transition. I think most people know that Phil passed away in 2008 from Lou Gehrig's disease, and I've sort of been in a recovery mode since then. In the last 8 months, I've had Karen Welpley here. And Christy's just joining starting in June. She's officially here. They're two wonderful painters that are sharing the space upstairs with me. And then I'm hoping to have a jeweler move in the basement. Oh, good. So it's going to be a really fun.
It must be a big change for you having other artists here. Or painters. There's always this rivalry between painters and potters.
That's right.
Having Christy and Karen here must be much different than it was.
It is. I had another potter here for a little while. Daniel Christie was here in the basement and I had the upstairs. And that worked well because he did totally different work than I did. Mm-hmm. And we sort of complemented each other as the same way that Phil and I used to. We didn't really compete because our work was so different. And then I really enjoy having more things for people to come here and see. And I'm trying to make more of a go with the shop. Right. So it helps me a lot to have other people here.
Well, tell me about your own work. How would you describe your own work as a potter?
Well, it's mostly, I'd say, whimsically designed.
Right. We have a few pieces in front of us, and we're going to get a few more on screen. It's
functional, but I also like the fact that it's very decorative, and people might set it out and just have it on display, but then they could take it and use it, actually. So.
Yeah, I was curious about that. As a potter, do you prefer that? Do you prefer people using the pieces?
I do. I mean, potters are all different, obviously, as people are, but I love the fact that it's functional. But I have a lot of fun making things that look really fun and whimsical, but, that you can use. Right. So that's sort of my specialty.
Now, a big part of your way you make a living as a potter, you travel quite a bit to shows all over the country, right?
I average about between 9 and 11 shows a year.
Wow. That's a lot of work because you got to pack up everything, go out there, and shows like that typically, they're just for weekends or weeks?
Mostly. They're usually 2-day shows. I do a couple. The show that I'm going to be getting ready for right now is Boardwalk in Virginia Beach. So that's a 4-day show. But that's kind of rare to have one that long. But I find it's really fun to take it all out there and be in front of 100,000 people, on a weekend.
Yeah, yeah.
And
well, it's also important to note that people can get your work at shows, but they can also just come here. Right. What are the hours here where people can come and just see your work?
Normally we're here about 10 to 6 every day, and try to be open on the weekends. That's another point of having other people work with me, so that if there's 3 or 4 of us, we're going to be more likely to share the hours and have the shop open.
So when you're at a show somewhere, that Sophia Street Studios can still be open.
Right.
Right. I guess
Right. That's my goal.
All right. Hey, let's go back a little bit. How'd you get started as a potter?
Actually, I started when I was about 8 years old. I lived in New York, and my dad started a school, and there was a potter that came to work with the kids at the school, and I just really fell in love with clay and followed her around, and probably was a nuisance, but
Yeah, right.
never could get it out of my blood. I kind of always gravitated back towards it in school, and when I graduated from high school, I didn't go right away to college. I sort of got involved in restaurants and things like that, and then started to take classes at the hand workshop in Richmond, and that led me to working for two potters as an apprentice, and they really taught me so much in Richmond. Robin Cage and Lee Hazelgrove. I worked with them for about 7 years, and they were old friends of Phil, so it was a real small kind of pottery community. And then I met him at my first show in '95 at Arts in the Park in Richmond, so that was a big weekend for me.
Oh, cool.
And I was working retail at the time, and I had my first show, sold everything I had.
Oh, wow.
And decided to give notice at my job, and I've never looked back.
That's awesome. Tell me about some upcoming shows you have.
Well, I mentioned the Boardwalk, Virginia Beach Boardwalk show is Father's Day weekend in June. That's 4 days. And then I have another 4-day show at State College, Penn State.
All right.
It kind of takes over the whole town and the campus of the college. That's the middle of July. Those are two that I do every year.
Uh-huh.
And then I have nothing in August, which I'm going to enjoy this year.
Yeah, take your summer off.
Yeah, maybe go to the beach, and then they start up in the fall again. I'll have a couple in September.
And locally here in September, you're going to do a show at Liberty Town.
Right. Dan Finnegan and I just met last week, and he wanted to offer that to me as an opportunity here in town. I really think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's great to have sort of that connection with Liberty Town where we're helping each other out. Maybe you'll let some of our work in down here. So.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. We could, go back and forth like that and support each other.
Right.
We have a long history of friendship, and it's been really nice to kind of reconnect.
Yeah.
Get that.
Yeah. It was interesting going back to one thing I noticed about potters is there's a long history of apprenticeship and teaching. So you started as an apprentice.
Right.
Worked your way up. Now you're a potter, but you also teach too. Do you ever take on apprentices?
I have.
Yeah.
I've had people that worked here for numbers of years. That's been really nice. We've had some internships from the college, and people that have gone on to become potters and are doing their own work, and that's a very good, fulfilling feeling. That's
sort of a neat thing that we don't see, in the painting world. There's no apprenticeships; people just are painting.
Right.
And it's sort of interesting how there's a lineage. Like you could trace, what you've learned back to other potters and trace those back to other potters. I know Dan can trace his lineage back into England, and I think that's neat. I think that's sort of interesting. But then they also have their own little spin on it. Like you have your own spin.
Right. It's quite a nice community. I think we all really help each other out and work together and share recipes for glazes and clay recipes, and I just feel like it's a wonderful community. Yeah, and I think the Fredericksburg art community is a wonderful community too. Beyond, we're all crazy in our own ways, but we're all very supportive of each other's. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to meet another member of Sophia Street Studios. We'll be right back with Artscape.